Vaginal health is so important because it's a part of our body, just as much as we go to the doctor to get a checkup for our heart, checkup for our ENT, to go to like a gastroenterologist. You also want to make a regular checkup to your gynecologist. But vaginal health extends so much more than that, right? As much as you take care of your nails and your hair, it's so important that you take care of your vagina. And many people don't understand this because it's not taught in schools. And so, what I mean by that is learning how to take care of it, learning how to clean it, understanding the anatomy of your own body. And this is something a lot of people are uncomfortable with, is that many people haven't looked at their own vulva or their own vagina. Even outside of that, many people don't understand the different parts. What is the difference even between a vulva and a vagina? They don't understand the smells that come out of it, and that even just it's always going to have a bit of an odor, and they don't understand, or they don't seem to know if discharge is a good thing or a bad thing. And so vaginal health is so important that people understand, what does your vagina do, right? That's what vaginal health is. What does your vagina do? How does your vagina behave? What color is your discharge? How often do you clean it? How often do you need to go for a checkup? When was the last time you got a pap smear? Right, and these are things that can contribute to overall health, right? We only go to the doctor when we think about fertility, or when things get really, really bad, or we might have PCOS, or we might have, early signs of cervical cancer or uterine cancer. But vaginal health is something that everybody should be taking care of, even from before puberty. So one of the things that I will continue to advocate for is that everyone should take care of their vaginal health. There are a lot of things that can affect your vaginal health. For example, this is my personal favorite that I like to tell people. Your underwear, it can come down to your underwear. And so when you wear underwear to bed, or when you wear tight underwear, or you wear thongs, what can happen is that you're trapping all of the moisture in there, and it can lead to a little bit of off-putting odor, something that's not normal. I mean, a gentle odor is fine, but you'll really notice when it becomes stronger. It's because you're trapping all the sweat and the moisture inside. And so, the clothing you wear, if you're wearing latex, if you're wearing like really tight pants all the time, when you're not giving your vagina a place to breathe, that can really affect the vaginal health. Another thing that people are actually quite shocked by, and I can talk a little about the vaginal pH here. So the vaginal pH is so important, and it's about five-ish, maybe, and it's acidic, and it has bacteria. All vaginal canals, all vaginas have bacteria in it. And oftentimes we do certain things that can cause an imbalance of the pH of the bacteria. It can either cause an overgrowth or an undergrowth. What we want is the right amount of bacteria. And this imbalance can be caused by douching, which unfortunately a lot of gynecologists still suggest that people douche. And a douche is a chemical and water that is kind of like a spray. So you're like violently spraying the inside of your vaginal canal with these chemicals that shouldn't even be there in the first place. Strangely enough, semen can cause an imbalance. Not to say that people shouldn't have sex, but that's completely normal because the pH of semen is a little basic. Um, and because an acidic environment isn't going to let the sperms thrive, so it needs to neutralize the environment so that the sperms can thrive. And another important thing is our diet, right? If we continue to eat a lot of sugar, if we continue to eat a lot of junk food, this can really cause an imbalance in the pH of the vagina. And you might have noticed this as well, that when you don't drink enough water, you might feel your body is dehydrated, but also when you try to have sex, you find out that your vagina is equally dry and you have to use more lube. So, not eating a diet rich in vegetables, eating a lot of processed sugar, not drinking enough water can also affect our vaginal health. And I wouldn't call them problems. I think that these are natural. It's just that we often can't tell what's normal and what's abnormal because we don't have a basic understanding of how the vagina and the vulva behaves. So I'm just going to give a little one-on-one on how the vulva and the vagina behave. Pubic hair is normal. Pubic hair is supposed to be there. Pubic hair is helpful to us. And so because the hair down there is a lot more coarser, it can cause itching, and it can cause a little bit of friction, especially when you're like wearing tighter pants and tighter panties. Another thing that's completely normal is the smell. Um, all genitals smell, right? They are between our legs. It's sweat, it's moisture. There's already bacteria in there, good bacteria, and so it's going to smell. Another really common thing is that people don't understand is that the vaginal canal, not the vulva, the vaginal canal itself is self-cleaning. So you don't need to clean it, right? And the vulva just needs to be washed with water. And so I think that when you don't have a deeper understanding or even a basic understanding of your vulva, you've really never looked at it. No two vaginas and no two vulvas look the same. And so another common thing that people are misunderstand is that they say my vulva is so dark, or one labia lip is longer than the other, or it looks weird and there's something wrong with it, right? So now that we've established what's normal, we can talk about what's abnormal, right? Or like some basic issues. Chronic itching. So you're constantly itching, no matter you've cleaned your vulva and you have trimmed your pubic hair and you've eliminated all the possible reasons of it itching. If it's constantly itching, then you should go see a doctor. When thinking about vaginal discharge, discharge around the time of your month, like Meckelmertzing, when you're ovulating, is completely normal. It's usually white. It's stringy, which means that when you put it between your two fingers, it will still be joined together, and thin out in the middle. But I'm really talking about like a creamy white, looking like cottage cheese discharge, green discharge. If it's like really like smells fishy, your vagina should not smell like fish. So if it smells a little fishy, then there's an issue with it, and you want to see if maybe you have an STI or you have like a vaginal bacterial infection. Um, I think those are sort of the common issues that we face. Mild discoloration is fine, but if you find yourself getting a lot darker and darker and the hair is getting coarser, you see a wart, or you see any skin changes there that are abnormal, you should definitely go see a doctor. And this is why I advocate for people to spend time exploring their own bodies, right? Like, you look at your hand every day, and so you will notice even the smallest change in the way that it behaves or it looks. And so I really advocate for people to stare at their vaginas, look at their vaginas, understand it, because when something is off, you will be able to tell immediately before it becomes worse. It's so important to maintain a clean and healthy vagina. And one of the ways that we can do this, and first we'll talk about the difference between the vulva and the vagina. The vulva is the outer part of our genitals. So this is the labia minora, this is the labia majora. So the bigger outer lips, the inner lips are the labia minora. You have the hood of the clitoris, then you have the urethral canal, which is just below the clitoris. And then you have the lips or the opening of the vagina which goes into the vaginal canal. Right. The vagina is part of the vulva, but the vulva is not part of the vagina. So they are two different entities. And so now I'm going to talk about how to clean your vulva. Your vulva has a lot of lips, and it's very intricate, and there's a lot of pubic hair. And so what you want to do is you want to maintain hygiene, because I think as women in modern society, we wear a lot of tight pants, we wear panties, we wear thongs. And when we go in for a shower, it's really important that you use water to completely cleanse the area. And you can use a fragrance-free mild soap, but water is still good enough if you don't feel comfortable using soap. And so when you're cleaning it, what you want to do is you want to start taking a little bit of water and washing in between the lips. If you don't wash in between the lips, what can happen is you can have an accumulation of something called smegma, which is, again, completely normal. It's just a buildup of like dead cells, moisture, sweat, and it looks a little whitish. So people might mistake that as like a vulval infection or something, But if you haven't cleaned your vulva and properly, it can cause kind of a buildup. Another good practice is if you want to trim your pubic hair down to what's manageable for you, I think that's great. And now talking about the vagina, as I had mentioned, the vagina is self-cleaning, which means that it has its own ecosystem inside. It knows what it's about. It's running its own ship, and you don't need to interfere. Interfering will only cause future infections, and it's going to make it worse. And so leave it alone unless you are a trans person. And if you have a neo vagina and you've had like vaginal reconstruction, then at that point you do need to douche and you need to clean regularly. But if you have a natal vagina, if it's something that you are a cis woman, don't clean it. Believe it or not, after having sex, you are disrupting, and I'm talking about penetrative vaginal sex. You are interrupting the ecosystem, right? It's a foreign object that's inside your vagina, and something that can obviously cause a little bit of irritation, of course, is penetration, and semen is basic, and our vaginal ecosystem is acidic, so that can often like throw off the balance of the pH. But in terms of hygiene after sexual practices, it's so important that you clean the area right after you've had sex, and you pee after sex. And the reason that we say that is because you can cause a UTI, because what's happening in that area is a lot of friction is happening. There's a lot of exchange of fluids. And so after sex, you want to run straight to the bathroom, you want to pee, and you want to wipe front to back. Do not wipe from back to front, front to back. And you want to make sure that any sex toy that you're using, if you are engaging in sex with dildos, you want to make sure that you're using body safe and trusted sex toys. So don't buy like a $10 sex toy or like ₹100 sex toy from the internet on a site that you've never seen before just because it's cheap. Invest in quality materials because it really makes a difference. These are things that are directly touching the inside of your body. You want to make sure that it is body safe, BPA free, and you want to wash it. Every single sex toy will come with a manual on how to take care of it, or you can even go to the internet and you can Google, and trusted sites will tell you how to clean certain materials, whether it's something that you can wash with soap or it's just water, if they have like a special chemical that you need to wash it with. And so really make sure that before you use a sex toy, you want to wash it. And after you use it, you want to wash it. And another important practice is that don't use anything that's expired. Don't use expired condoms. Don't use expired lube. Don't use an expired or a really old sex toy that has just been sitting in your drawer for like 10 years and you haven't used it. Like you don't want to use any of that stuff. And I think those are sort of, if I'm missing anything, maybe it'll come up later. But those are some of the ways that you can take care of your body, while you're having sex. I often encourage people to keep a journal, and it's not just a sex journal. So this is your health journal. And these are the things that you should get regularly. For men over the ages of 40, if you've had like a history of colon cancer, that's the first time that you should go get checked for colon cancer. Similarly, I think for women, above the age of 30, you start getting your first, and this is in the US, you get your first pap smear. And then if it's like no signs of any, malignancy, or, all the cells are normal, then they say that you're fine for the next 5 years. But, if they notice anything, then it's 3 years. So depending on, where you are, you can check the guidelines. But, it's important that we go regularly to the gynecologist because, again, when we look at our own vulvas, we, again, might feel something is abnormal, or we might actually look at something that's abnormal and think it's normal because we haven't spent enough time with our bodies. If you're having any doubts, I think going to a gynecologist is really important. But I would say that, getting an STI check once a year, going to the gynecologist once a year, even if you just have someone stare at your vagina, look at your vulva, take a look at it and give you like a tick and say, great, good sign of health. I think that's really important. And these are people that you can ask questions to, right? Like you can ask them, when is my pap smear? Is there something, am I menstruating, right? Like I get my period every 30 days. Is that normal? I'm having this kind of a discharge. Is that normal? What kind of contraception is normal for me, right? I think when we think about the gynecologist, it's someone who's there who, again, it's such a vulnerable position that I don't think many people understand. Is you are sitting, you are lying down, and your legs are up on a stirrup, and you have a stranger staring into your vagina. You don't even look at it yourself. So why would you have someone else look at it, right? But this is someone, and if you find the right trusted and a sex positive gynecologist, it can be life changing. I love my gynecologist. I ask her all sorts of questions. And it isn't always, inserting something into my vagina violently and, trying to take a look. It can be as simple as sitting in a chair, talking to your gynecologist and asking questions like I had mentioned before. Are my periods normal? Is this discharge normal? Is that smell normal? What kind of contraception is important for me? Can you help me choose the right contraception for me? um, how often should I get tested for STIs? Can I get tested for STIs right now? And so really just making that annual checkup and asking those 5 basic questions can be so important. And so based on what they say, if you're having sex with multiple partners, if you are actively having sex, and you're above a certain age, then you want to go for your HPV. If you have a history of cervical cancer or uterine or ovarian cancer, then you want to go for specific tests that are important to you. If you had like a history of breast cancer, then you want to go for those additional checkups. But having that basic annual checkup once a year where you can ask someone these questions and get a certification of health that your vagina is doing great, I think that is so important.